Ladies and gentlemen, in my hands, I have a next-gen console, the Xbox Series X. Today is very exciting. I've had this thing for about 2 weeks, but I've not been able to play any actual next-gen games yet, but it all changes in this video. Today, I'm going to be showing you guys the first Series X gameplay recorded by me from this thing on a Series X game, but more importantly than that, the world's first 120 frames per second game on console. 120 hertz, 120 FPS, and at 4K. This is what's really going to set this console and the PlayStation 5 apart from any console before. I'm really excited for the future of this because one of my favorite upcoming games, Black Ops Cold War, is also going to have 120 hertz / 120 FPS compatible on this console and PS5. So if you do go on to enjoy this video, please let me know down below in the comment section your thoughts. Drop the video a thumbs up, as let me tell you, recording 120 FPS is not easy, but I've managed to do it just for you. And I'm showing you the future, baby. So if you want to see more awesome content from this, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. And to really make sure that this is 120 FPS, Microsoft hooked me up with an incredible TV. This is a 48-inch LG OLED TV with 4K 120 hertz, which is only possible via a HDMI 2.1 input. It's got NVIDIA G-Sync, it's got FreeSync, it's got instant game response, HDR10 Pro, as well as Dolby Vision. This is the ultimate TV for next-gen consoles. I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually speechless that this TV got sent to me. It is the best TV I've ever owned and is the best way to showcase what 120 hertz can look like. But let's start off by actually showing you some next-gen gameplays. This is Xbox Series X gameplay of Dirt 5, a racing launch title coming to the Xbox next month. This is the only game I can test at 120, but all you're seeing right now is 4K 60 FPS gameplay with the game set to the image quality setting. This is one of 3 playback modes on the Series X. There's one dedicated to a higher frame rate, another for image quality, and then finally 120 hertz. We're showing you what image quality looks right now, which is a native 4K resolution. And that's exactly what you'd expect from a image quality mode, to get the best looking images out of the game, and that's what we're going to be looking for with all next gen games going forward. This mode focuses on the in-game settings, putting everything at ultra settings. There's higher quality shadows, there's improved texture filtering, and an improved level of crowd density around the circuits. And that's something you can notice while I'm driving around. You can see there's a lot of crowds on both the left and right side of the circuit at different intervals. Now, I'll be absolutely honest and say that Dirt 5 is not a bad looking game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not the best game we could possibly have as a tester for next gen graphics. But this is a look at this game that is going to be on next gen consoles. Bear in mind, this is also coming out on PS4 and Xbox One next month, since a load of games that are coming out next month as well are also going to be on last gen and next gen consoles. This is a really nice comparison to see what sort of improvements we can get. Now, the other mode in the game is called high frame rate. Now, with this mode, it will run the game at a dynamic 4K resolution, which is targeting 60 frames per second. And visually speaking, the game does a very good job sticking at 4K, even at the high frame rate mode. According to Digital Foundry, literally the only slight drop resolution wise is right at the beginning starting grid, where it drops to like 1800p, but that's literally it. Sticking with the image quality mode we've got here, essentially everything is boosted up to be like as if it was on high settings on PC, where everything is just much more higher quality and it's still at a 4K resolution. Only difference is that it's targeting a 60 frames per second, but it's not a consistent 60, whilst the higher frame rate mode guarantees that 60 frames per second lock. And it's only when you're in a big pack of 12 cars in this image mode where the resolution will drop to 1800p at the lowest. But again, that's an extreme case, and that may change in the final build of the game. That's not what you guys are here to see. You're here to see a new mode, the 120 hertz mode, and this is where it completely changes the game experience for me. Now, recording a game at 120 frames per second at 120 hertz is very difficult. My Elgato capture card can only record 60 hertz. There isn't actually any capture solution out there that does 120 hertz. So I've come up with a really nice solution to actually showcase 120 frames. I've got a camera which is recording 120 frames per second at my TV screen, and we're going to be showing you both the 60 frames per second mode and then the 120 frames per second mode. Now, the best way to see this is when we slow it down and do some direct comparisons. So we're starting off here with our 60 frames per second, and this is where the Xbox is at 120 hertz, and this was recorded at 120 frames per second. And at the moment, the game looks really nice and smooth. I've got all those settings on the TV that I mentioned earlier, and now we've got 120 FPS, and you really can't see a difference. And this is the problem when trying to show this on YouTube, because YouTube will only show you 60 frames per second. But here, if we go and do some slow motions, this is where you can really start to see a difference. So if we slow motion this at 0.5 times, so 50% the speed, you can see the 60 FPS and then the 120 FPS, how smooth that looks turning corners. It is absolutely gorgeous. You can absolutely see there is a massive, massive difference. And I've made to reiterate this. Every time we turn a corner, you can visually see how smooth 120 frames per second looks in motion. I wish there was an easier way to show this at full speed on YouTube, but slow motion here around these corners is easily the best way that I can showcase this to you. Now, the only drawbacks that I've noticed when going between 60 and 120 is that you have less crowd density for a start, and I think some of the shadow quality is affected somewhat with 120 FPS. But the most shocking thing about this is that this is a locked 120 frames per second gameplay. According to Digital Foundry, when you're playing this particular game at 120 hertz, you're getting a locked 120 FPS at 1440p resolution. Now, I'm playing the game both sides at 120 hertz, one at the 60 FPS mode, one at the 120 hertz mode, and this is with 4K resolution on the TV. And as you can see, when we put it down to 0.25 times, so it's a quarter of the speed of normal playback, it just looks so incredibly smooth. I can't really put into words how much of a better experience you get when it comes to fast-paced instant reaction games like racing and shooters that are going to be completely different experiences when you play them with these modes enabled. This is as close as you're going to get to a PC experience playing at those higher refresh rates, and this is coming from a console. It's seriously impressive. Now, again, this is not a final build of the game, nor is it a final build of the Xbox Series X, so it's hard to give a final judgment based off of these results alone. But especially when we get to the quarter speeds, and even here with the slow motion, you can see just how much the smoke looks so much clearer. You can see every gravel of dirt there, and the motion looks super smooth. And here we go. This is the real test. Slow motion here over that bridge. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. And in motion, when you're racing and all these different backdrops against, like, you know, 12 other AI cars, everything stays a smooth 120 FPS. And this is going to be the future of gaming. To me, once you play in a mode like this, it's really hard to go back. I've had many years of playing PC games on a 1080p monitor at 144 hertz, so I know how smooth that motion looks like. Having that smoothness of motion from a console, and the fact that these games might actually be able to do 4K 120 FPS is actually nuts. Like, not even some of the best PCs can do 120 FPS at 4K right now. 120 FPS is going to push these consoles to the absolute limits, and it's really cool that we can get that in a console form now. If any of you are watching that have a 120 or 144 hertz monitor, or even higher than that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But this is a sort of smoothness that you just can't visually see on YouTube. You need to see it for yourself. But what is really exciting is that when the Xbox Series X launches, it's going to be the console with the most games that support a 120 FPS mode. There's about 13 games that are optimized for 120 FPS on the launch of the Xbox, and that includes Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, which means you can play campaign, multiplayer, zombies, potentially even Warzone at 120 FPS on a console. It is going to be absolutely incredible. The only drawbacks to this, though, is that you need to have a compatible TV or monitor that supports HDMI 2.1 and has a refresh rate of 120 hertz at 4K resolution. Right now, that is something that just isn't commercially available. 144 hertz at 1440p is very popular for PC gaming right now, and I'm sure a lot of console gamers will go down the same route. But if you really want to take all the advantage out of these next-gen consoles with 4K 120, you need to be looking at getting an expensive monitor or an expensive TV like the LG OLED that I showed you in this video in order to get those results. However, is it ultimately necessary and an absolute game breaker if you can't? I don't think so. I mean, these next-gen consoles are primarily targeting 4K at 60 frames per second. That's the sweet spot that pretty much we're going to be looking for this generation. But the fact that we have a 120 hertz option for games straight out of the box on day one is really cool, and it could push us into a future where 120 FPS and 120 hertz content is slowly going to become a normal thing, as 60 hertz and 60 FPS have become the normal standard that we watch every day and we play every day. I want to thank you so much for watching all the way through this video. If you wondered, no, this is not a sponsored video. I just really appreciate that Microsoft sent me the Xbox Series X early. I know that I have a great opportunity to bring some showcases of videos of next-gen gameplay and content, and I know this is a big thing because I'm interested in 120 frames per second. I'm sure you guys are. So let me know what you thought down below in the comment section. When I can get my hands on some other 120 hertz games, especially Black Ops Cold War, I'll be sure to bring it to you guys here on the channel, so be sure to subscribe for the latest and greatest. I'll have even more Xbox Series X coverage coming to the channel very soon, and already have a video showcasing all the old Call of Duty Zombies games, so Black Ops 1, 2, and 3, with all their improvements with back compatibility and quick resume on the channel, so you can check that out on your screen now. But thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.